Shit.
Welcome back to Banging the Can, the Houston sports show that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolen Media. I am Ross Bolen, and holy shit, what a Houston sports Sunday that was. The now 5-4 Texans beat the Bengals 30-27 in Cincinnati with a late field goal from Matt Amendola, who went 3 for 3 and hit all 3 extra points, I might add. And the now 6-3 Houston Rockets beat the defending champion Denver Nuggets 107-104 at the Toyota Center. And it was reported that the Houston Astros would be making bench coach Joe Espada the next manager of the team. All in one Sunday. We have a lot to talk about today, H-Town. Let's start with the Texans in what ended up being a statement game for our up-and-coming squad. I cannot tell you how good it feels to be wearing my Texans hoodie today without a shroud of shame, in large part due to C.J. Stroud bars. On the opening drive of the game for the Bengals, it looked like it might be a long day in Cincinnati. But the defense got going, forced a lot of punts. Really looked like the DeMeco Ryans effect on the defense is starting to take hold. I didn't talk defense at all last week because there wasn't that much to talk about, so I'm starting with them today. Blake Cashman, linebacker. This dude was everywhere. Stat sheet doesn't really show it, but he was in on a ton of plays, and this is going to be a repetitive theme for the defense in this win against the Bengals. Like Will Anderson Jr. was pressuring Burrow a lot more, still not much on the stat sheet, but the number 3 pick in the NFL draft seems to be gaining some momentum, which is good, especially with the pass rush. DeAndre Houston Carson led the team with 7 solo tackles as a defensive back. There was only really one embarrassing moment for the defense late in the game when Burrow torched our backfield for a long touchdown to some fucking guy I've never even heard of. But other than that, I mean, there's not like a standout star on our defense. They're just playing as a cohesive unit and getting results as a team, which if you watched the 49ers defense that DeMeco Ryans was at the helm of last season, for example, then you saw, I mean, really, and historically, if you watch great defenses in the NFL, it's never like one guy. There can be some game wreckers like J.J. Watt, but for the most part, as we saw during the J.J. Watt era, you got to have the full picture painted. You got to have corners, you got to have safeties, you got to have linebackers, you got to have D linemen, you got to have it all kind of clicking at once, and that's the feel I'm starting to get from this Texans defense. The energy they are playing with, the passion, the attention, that is all credit to DeMeco Ryans, in my opinion, because that is not something we have seen in a long time, like since the Bulls on Parade era of the Texans where DeMeco was playing still. It's been a long time since we saw a defense that we could get behind and be proud of, and that's what we've got at this point. I mean, they really did a number on Joe Burrow at different points in this game for long stretches. 3 and out, punt, punt, punt. After that hot start for the Bengals, the Texans put the clamps on, and they had a lot of trouble moving the football. And that was great to see. It was great to see. On the offensive side of the ball, of course, who do we talk about first? C.J. Stroud. Another day that just shows this kid has what it takes. 23 completions on 39 attempts for 356 yards, a touchdown, and one really bad, like his worst throw yet as the starting quarterback of the Texans at the end of the game for an interception, when frankly, we should have been running the ball anyway. I don't know what the hell we were doing there, and we'll talk some more about that in a minute, but CJ had another good game. He has now thrown for 826 yards in the last 2 weeks, and as a result, C.J. Stroud is suddenly in the MVP conversation, not just the Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation, which he probably has that on lock, frankly, but the most valuable player in the NFL conversation. I would remind you, he is a rookie. That is insane. What we are witnessing is crazy. Like, we have the guy. Name a player in the NFL that is currently hotter. A hotter topic. We have the guy. We've never really done that before. I mean, we saw glimpses of this with he who shall not be named, another quarterback that we took and looked like he might reshape the future of this franchise, who is now in Cleveland. That's what I'll say. We saw some flash, like there was a lot of media attention on him, right? But this, where it's week after week after week after week, and it just keeps building. He just keeps getting better. This is 2 late wins that the Texans have accomplished 2 weeks in a row against the Buccaneers and now the Bengals. And CJ Stroud deserves the bulk of the credit, I think. Between him and DeMeco Ryans, you can kind of chop it up. But like in terms of guys on the field making it happen, CJ Stroud is very clearly the leader of this football team. And what he brings to the table, everyone else is able to rally behind, get excited about, and believe in. And I'll tell you, I don't know if it's just that we've lacked really talented coaching in Houston. And I'm not just talking about the Texans. I'm talking about the Rockets too, really. The Astros, we've gotten lucky. We've been in a good spot. Dusty Baker was a fine general for our baseball team. And before him, AJ Hinch. But I don't know if I've maybe not given coaching enough credit, or I've just never seen this level of coaching in terms of the Texans and the Rockets, which we can get to in a little bit. But like the turnaround and how quickly it has happened with a competent coach leading the squad is fucking shocking. It's crazy to see. The difference in the product on the field between now and the last 3 head coaches we had is astonishing, is blowing my mind. And it just goes to show that, like, look, here's one of the things I'm currently processing and learning. Everyone in the NFL is good at football. Everyone in the NBA is good at basketball, right? There's a lot of talent on every team. But if you can't get that talent to work together and buy in to your coaching strategy, play as a unit, and believe in one another and trust one another, it's really hard to win meaningful games and championships, right? And I've always known that. I played sports as a kid. I was taught the importance of team play. We saw during the James Harden era of the Houston Rockets how difficult it is to win when there's one guy shouldering the entire offensive load, for example. It wasn't really team basketball. This is team football being played here. DeMeco Ryans has installed this sense of belief that you're seeing permeate through every part of the game. Special teams, kicking, fucking punt returned, everything. Offense, defense, it's been truly magical to watch. And I just can't say enough about how impressed I am at this point. The receivers, again, an impressive outing. Noah Brown had a day, again. 172 yards receiving. 7 receptions on 8 targets for 172 yards receiving. Dalton Schultz did well again, 71 yards on 4 catches. Tank Dell got banged up in this one, took a brutal hit. But still, 6 receptions, 56 yards, and a touchdown catch. Nico Collins wasn't even in this game. Did you see our injury report? That was the longest injury report I have ever seen from a Texans team. There's like 30 fucking guys hurt. We still went out and beat the Bengals in Cincinnati without arguably our number 1 target in the receiving corps in Nico Collins. He was out. But Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell got it done. CJ Stroud still got it done. The running game got going, and that was a big part of why we were able to do what we did to the Bengals. Devin Singletary had a day. And it had been a really, really long time since we have seen a Texans running back have a day. After being limited to just 26 yards rushing last week in the win against the Bucs, Devin Singletary had 30 touches for 150 yards on the ground. I don't know when the last time the Texans had a running back hit the 150-yard mark was, but I'm telling you, it was a really fucking long time. It might have been Arian Foster. It has been years. And we are seeing stuff that we haven't seen in a really, really long time as Texans fans, and it is exciting. It is truly exciting. As I said last week, if we can get the run game going consistently, the Texans' offense is going to become a very real problem for even the most astute opposing defenses. The Bengals' defense is nothing to shake your dick at. They're solid. But they had a really tough time stopping what was a balanced offensive attack from the Texans, and that was one thing I will give Bobby Slowick. We seem to be effective with the running and the passing game. Because I'm going to rip into Bobby in a little bit, but that's one thing I will give him. Effective on both sides of the offensive ball. That was big. Getting the running game going was really, really big. Credit to the O-line as well. Credit to the big man up front. They got it done. Awesome to see Singletary have the day he did. And obviously, look, great win. Great win. Biggest win of the season against a Super Bowl contending franchise in the Bengals and Joe Burrow. But we still have some areas we've got to improve. There are some really obvious fixes that I think could somehow even take us to a higher level than we're seeing currently. Like, ill-timed false starts have got to stop. Penalties remain a problem overall, really. A lot of bad penalties. There was also some really dog shit calls from the referees in this game, frankly. There was a point where I was like, oh, they're pretty clearly trying to keep the Bengals in this one. There was a defensive pass interference that was absolute nonsense called against us. They were letting the Bengals offensive line hold like crazy, especially down the stretch. A lot of missed calls that should have gone against the Bengals and a lot of calls against the Texans that should not have gotten called at all. At one point, C.J. Stroud got hit in the head. He's being taken down by two guys. The third guy comes in, headshot, nothing. No flag. Referees were dog shit. Terrible. Awful. Worst referee crew I've seen so far this season. But we have got to be better in terms of penalties and committing them. And we've got to get the offensive line. I don't know if the false starts are all like a C.J. Stroud thing, if he's still getting a feel for, or if it's just that the O-line is jumpy. But it's happening too often in the biggest moments where I'm like, okay, we're on like the 3 fucking yard line in a potential 4th down situation where we would maybe be going for it on 4th down. Now suddenly we're backing up 5 yards. And it's happened too many times. It's got to stop. The false starts have got to stop. The offensive line has got to be better in that regard. They're doing a pretty solid job blocking. It's time to give them their flowers. They're keeping C.J. Stroud alive. He did take a couple of hits this game where I was like, oh, God, please make it stop. But they're getting it done. Stroud has stayed healthy. That's remains the most obviously important thing for this team is keep C.J. Stroud from getting hit. If you got a hold to keep that from happening, do it. That's a penalty I will live with right now. But if it's a false start or a DPI, the penalties have got to be cut down. We're committing way too many of them every week. It comes up on the broadcast. They're like, that's the 120th penalty yard for the Texans. It's fucking ridiculous. That's got to stop. That's one area we have to improve. The other is the play calling offensively. Bobby Slowick. I don't know if he's being given more like maybe power than he should be or something, but like we're getting to the point where this is becoming a mild concern. We're throwing on 3rd and short when we're trying to eat clock. We're going long on 3rd and short way too often with CJ's gunning it downfield 30 plus yards, and this has not worked a single fucking time yet. Look, if it was hitting every time, and maybe every once in a while it didn't work out the way it could have, that's one thing. But that's not what's happening here. There has been some sketchy play calling on the part of Bobby Slowick when it comes to the offense. And he's got to be better. He's got to be better, especially in the late game situations. But really overall, there's been some weird calls on 3rd down where I'm like, what the fuck was that? What are we doing? Why? And I understand the appeal of the ball in C.J. Stroud's hand, obviously. I get it. but sometimes you got to let the situation dictate the play call. You can't get too cute. You can't get too fancy. And Bobby, you're getting too cute, Bobby. You're getting too fancy, Bobby. It's still football, Bobby. There are some really easy choices to be made here, and you're not making them. Especially, maybe last week when the run game is just utterly non-existent, you've got an excuse to a certain extent. But this week, we're running the ball. We're finding open holes. Singletary's having a game. Hand it the fuck off. What are you doing? You're just giving them time to do what they then did. We almost lost this one. This would have been a bad loss. Great win, but it was almost a disaster. I mean, there was a point with 3 minutes and change left where I said, this is over. I declared it. And then I had one of those moments as a sports fan where you go, oh my God, no. CJ threw a pick. Suddenly, Burrow gets the Bengals pretty quickly into the end zone. We're looking at a tie game. Now maybe overtime. Not good. Not what you want. This should have been one that was easier for us to put away. And that's a thing that happens with young teams. I get it. But there's no excuse for the offensive coordinator. He's got to make better play calls. He's got to put these young guys in a better position than he has so far this season in multiple instances. So those are the areas, really, the two main areas that I think a little bit of improvement could go a really long way. Cut down on the penalties, stop with the fucking false starts, make some more intelligent play calls. Bobby. Quit being cute, Bobby. You're not that cute, Bobby. Texans are 5-4. They could be 7-2. We should have beat the Falcons. That was a game we should have won by all rights. We should have beat Carolina. That is a game we should not have lost. We should have won. And I think we can beat the Colts. I don't think anybody's going to sit here and argue at this point after everything they've seen, oh, no, I don't think the Texans can handle the Colts. So you could argue that we could be 8-1 with our only real loss coming from the Ravens. The record is the record. We're 5-4. I'm just saying, if you're judging this team against the rest of the league, things are starting to get interesting. How good are the Texans? What is the ceiling for this team? This year, anyway? I think winning the AFC South is an obvious possibility at this point. I don't think Colts fans or Jags fans or Titans fans would argue with that either. It's another year where the division is kind of up in the air. There's nobody all that impressive. And in terms of hype, we have the most of it probably. I don't think it's crazy 9 games in, 10 weeks into the season, to say that we could win a playoff game. I really don't think that's crazy anymore. Is this team you're watching that much? Is there that much space between them and some of the better teams we've ever seen as Texans fans? The record might dictate otherwise. Because we had a couple years there with Schaub and Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins and Arian Foster and J.J. Watt, where we had a great record, but then we went into the playoffs and got the living shit kicked out of us. And it seemed like the record was a facade. It wasn't legit. But there's nothing I've seen from this team to indicate that they're soft like that. There's nothing from this team I've seen to indicate that it would be all that outlandish if they won a playoff game this year. And I'm just being realistic. I'm the one who all last season, all off season, and before every game this year has said, keep your expectations realistic, keep them as low as possible so you will experience as little pain as possible when it comes to the Texans. And look, I don't think we're getting past Kansas City or Baltimore, but that's 2 teams. When I look at the AFC, the whole conference, those are the only 2 teams that currently strike fear into my heart, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. And frankly, if you told me before the season started that we might be one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the AFC through week 10, I would have said you need to get sober. But that's where we are. That's what's happening here. The NFL is a crazy league. Just like that, snap of a finger, teams go from being not even worthy of conversation and coverage to suddenly having a potential MVP candidate and a rookie quarterback with a new head coach and beating teams that people thought there was no way they should be beating. We were 6-point underdogs against the Bengals. I think it ended up at 5.5 before the game, but 6-point underdog. I saw 6.5 at one point on Saturday. Came out and got the win. I mean, we are making noise, the Texans. And look, if you've got like two or more other teams that I'm not thinking of outside of the Bengals and the Chiefs that we should really fear right now through 10 weeks, please enlighten me. Tell me. But I'm not seeing anything out of the AFC that really freaks me out. Like, we are in a great, great spot. I don't think we're making a Super Bowl run this year. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to take myself to that place and be like a Cowboys fan with insane, unrealistic expectations every season. I'm not going to do that. But if you told me we win the division, if you told me we win a playoff game this year, I wouldn't think that was crazy. That's how good things are going. And that compared to last season and the season before it and the season before it is fucking crazy. Seeing the celebration in the locker room after the game against the Bengals was surreal. I had to pinch myself. And obviously, we give all the credit to the guys on the field who are getting it done, but you have got to look at D'Amico Ryans at this point, and you've got to look at owner Cal McNair and our GM and say thank you. Thank you for making the correct hire in D'Amico Ryans. Thank you for bringing him home. Because look at what we've got going now in the Houston Texans. Another great win. Still have some areas we can improve, which means we can get even better. And I am excited. Excited. I can't remember the last time when 2 Sundays in a row, I was excited to be a Texans fan. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm excited. One thing about Houston that you better make peace with if you want to survive, it is fucking hot most of the year. And if you don't dress accordingly, you will die accordingly. Fortunately, Bird Dogs will have you looking and feeling good no matter the season in the most comfortable and versatile pants, shorts, and bathing suits in the entire world. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. I've been wearing Bird Dogs for several years now. I have an entire dresser drawer occupied solely by Bird Dogs pants, shorts, and bathing suits. I wear Bird Dogs to do yard work, to work out while I'm hooping, wear them to go swimming. I wear them when I play golf, their pants. I wear them to sleep. I wear them to do everything. They fit great. They feel great. They look great. They're phenomenal. They're so comfortable. And they come in a ton of different designs and colors with funny names like the Art Fart Knockers, Uncle Bucks, Teddy Rubskins, and Forest Pumps, just to name a few. Pants, great for the golf course, especially this time of year, but also the office or going out to dinner or hitting the bars. They look sharp. You will be so much more comfortable than anyone even realizes because you're going to look good too in these Bird Dogs pants. And now they've got great looking polo shirts as well. They're just as comfortable as the pants and shorts. Click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/BTC and enter code BTC when you check out, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order. It's a beautiful Bird Dogs hat for free when you go to birddogs.com/BTC and use code BTC at checkout. Again, that's birddogs.com/BTC, code BTC as in banging the can. So moving on to the Rockets. After beating the defending champion Denver Nuggets 107-104 in the Toyota Center at home, the Houston Rockets also appear to be way ahead of schedule and have gotten the attention of the NBA because that is 6 wins in a row now. 6 wins in a row now. 6-1 homestand for the Rockets. Between the Texans and the Rockets, I don't know what to do with myself. I had no expectation of this level of happiness in the Astros offseason. I feel great. I don't even care that the Rangers won the World Series, or that we lost the ALCS, or that we moved on from our manager, Dusty Baker. I don't even care. Look at what we've got going here with these other sports. It's been fucking years and years since we had this experience. There was that point, and I'll touch on it again. There was that point in Houston where the Astros were still cooking, and suddenly the Texans had a quarterback that was not C.J. Stroud. And the Rockets had James Harden, and it looked like that was the golden age of Houston sports. And then suddenly, it all came crashing down, pretty much simultaneously between Deshaun and James. And now, only a few short years later, things have been built back up. The Rockets are cooking. They're fun to watch. It's team basketball. The head coach is likable. The stars on the team are likable. The young guys are likable. And they're young. Really young, some of these dudes. There's a good balance between veterans and under 23-year-olds. Exciting coach. The Rockets are doing it. The Texans are doing it. We're in a fucking fantastic place in Houston. I love it. I love it. Ime Udoka. Look, there was a lot of hype around this guy. Weird exit in Boston with the Celtics. Whatever happened there, I'm not even really clear on the story. I think he was sleeping with one of the other coaches or executives' wives or something, which is, I don't know, it's kind of funny to me, but I'm sick. It looked like he was the most coveted potential hire in the league. I didn't really think we would end up with him. Credit to Tillman Fertitta for making it happen, and Raphael Stone for making it happen. Getting Ime Udoka in the front office, holy shit, the turnaround has been swift. He has been great. I want to order an Ime Udoka jersey at this point. Like, I could not be a bigger fan of this man. He is crushing it. And watching him coach is inspiring. In the same way that DeMeco Ryans has the Texans all believing and on the same page and playing as a unit and as a team, which is really, really hard to do when everybody on the floor is worth like $30 million. That's always been the challenge with professional sports. How do you get these grown men who have really been doing nothing but sports their entire lives? Education was very secondary for most of these guys because they're focused on getting the bag. Now they've got the bag, and you have to get them to still try harder. That is a tough task. DeMeco is doing it with the Texans. Ime is doing it with the Rockets, and it is exciting to watch. And I mean, this man, Ime Udoka, is making Steven Silas look like an absolute boob. If you watched the Rockets the last couple seasons, it was ugly. It wasn't just that we were losing. It was how we were playing. It was the decisions being made in terms of minute distribution for the guys. Like, there were some dudes like Alperen Şengün was the obvious, easiest example. Well, if you were a pretty, not a casual, if you're a pretty big basketball fan and you watched the Rockets, you went, oh, well, Şengün's the best offensive player on the court. They should maybe run the ball through him. They should run the offense through him. They should get him more looks. The guy was getting benched by Steven because of his defense. Because of his defense. We're winning like 12 games a season, Steven. What the fuck are you doing? Let the kid develop. Now you're seeing the potential if you have somebody who actually knows what they're doing in charge of the team. And I felt bad for Steven. I felt like that was a tank job hire. Like, they knew he didn't have what it took. And they hired him anyway because they wanted to continue stacking top 5 picks. Well, it worked, and then we found a real coach, and now look at what we've got going. It is crazy. To Steven's credit, they made some moves to bring in some veterans that can lead the squad as well, which we will get to now. Fred VanVleet. I don't think there's anybody in the league who's looking at the contract we gave him as silly now. I mean, we haven't played that many games yet, but shit. He's like... You got, like, in the same way that you've got to have a quarterback to really be competitive, you got to have a point guard. You got to have a point guard who can run your offense. And there are some different styles of point guards that you can have success with. A score-first point guard sometimes. There's been guys like Russell Westbrook. There's pass-first like Chris Paul. Fred VanVleet is a pretty solid medium here. He can score the ball. But he makes sure the offense is running, that guys are moving, that the ball keeps moving, that we're playing real team basketball. That's what Fred has brought to the table. In this win against the Nuggets, he was 9 for 21 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, 26 points. But the most impressive thing, he took over late. He's doing the thing that veteran stars do. When the game is on the line, somebody has to step up and say, I'm going to get this shit done. Fred VanVleet did that. So not only is he leading the offense really well, not only as an undrafted, now very wealthy man, is he teaching these younger stars what it takes to be a winner in the NBA as a former champion himself. Fred VanVleet, not only serving as a mentor, not only running the offense effectively, but also stepping up at the end of games and saying, I'll be the fucking guy when I have to be. He's making Kevin Porter Jr. look like an even more worthless sack of shit than KPJ already did. And that's an area, a gray area there, that Raphael Stone will have hanging over his head as long as he is in Houston. Like, why the fuck we invested so much in a point guard who couldn't run the offense correctly, who couldn't get guys open looks, who was not a solid decision maker. Now we have that, so we're not going to stay stuck in the past. I'm just saying that is one of the areas that me and every other hardcore Rockets fan is scratching our heads like, what the fuck? What were we doing? Because this team has enough offensive talent. If you get somebody who can run the offense properly, like Fred is, you see the results. Getting great wins. Really doing it. Alperen Şengün. Oh, man. Against the Nuggets, against what is the possible final form in Nikola Jokic for Alperen Şengün, he was great. 9 of 21 from the field, 26 points, 3 of 9 from 3. 23 points on 9 of 18 shooting. I got stuck on Fred VanVleet's stats. I'm so enamored by him. But Alperen has looked fantastic. He's making the jump defensively. Like, if you watch the Rockets, everybody, like I said, we all knew Alperen Şengün was something special on offense. It's rare to see a center that can read the court the way he does. It's one of the things that makes Nikola Jokic so impressive, right? He's got the footwork, the passing, the vision, on top of 7-8 different ways he can score the ball himself. And Alp has that kind of game. But now he's making the jump defensively. And he's adding to his offensive arsenal with a mid-range jumper. He's doing like a little Dirk fade thing. He's adding offensive moves. He's stepping up his defense. Alperen Şengün appears to be making a jump here. And that is great news for Rockets fans. He's also passing at an elite level. He is the real deal. And he is 21 years old. He could be 4 or 5 years from his peak. And he's already looks like an all-star. I mean, he really does. He's not flashy. Neither is Jokic. Jokic has 2 MVPs. Jokic is winning championships. You don't need to be flashy. You need to be a winner. So if Ime can continue to shape Alperen Şengün's game, oh, buddy, we're in for a real treat. Jeff Green on the other end of the age spectrum. Jeff Green is 37 years old. I'm 36. All right. I know what my body feels like, and I'm not in the kind of shape that Jeff Green is in, granted. Never been a professional athlete. Don't have millions of dollars at my disposal to use on conditioning myself and making sure that my body is as fit as possible. I also have 2 young children. That doesn't help. But the point is, 37 years old, and don't even get me started on LeBron James, but this isn't a Lakers podcast, so we're not going to talk about LeBron and how insane it is that he's doing what he's doing at his age. But Jeff Green at 37 years old is an inspiration. It's like watching Nolan Ryan back in the day when he was like 40 and he beat the shit out of Bobby Valentino or whatever his name. It's not Bobby Valentino, but you know what I'm trying to say. And Bobby Ventura. Jeff Green is inspiring, man, for the older guys like me. And no disrespect to people who are older than me. You're older guys too. I'm just in the bucket with you now. Like, my body fucking hurts from doing nothing. Jeff Green is out there balling at 37 years old. And this game against the Nuggets, more so than any other game so far this season, was the Jeff Green game. 15 points on 5 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, playing great D, calling out the Nuggets plays. He was on that Nuggets championship team, remember? So he's just calling out their plays to our defense down the stretch at the end of the game. That's helpful. Makes it a little easier. A little bit like sign stealing, huh? But bang that can. Jeff Green's been awesome. If this team can keep Fred VanVleet playing at the level he is playing, which I see no reason they can't, if they can get even close to this level of production out of Jeff Green that he showed last night, if they can keep Dylan Brooks from derailing, keep Alperen Şengün progressing defensively and adding more in terms of his offense, if they can get Jabari Smith Jr. going and Jalen Green going, baby, we got a stew going. Amin Thompson's not even playing yet. He's hurt. And there may not be a whole lot of minutes in the rotation for him when he's not hurt. Because this team is cooking. And you don't want to fuck with that. Let the young guys develop. Tari Eason was great off the bench. Jayshawn Tate brought the energy defensively. 3 steals, snagged 6 rebounds. So how good is this Rockets team? At this point, I feel more confident saying the Texans might be a playoff team than saying that about the Rockets, because we're not enough games into the season yet. You got to give it some more time before you start throwing out crazy predictions about the Rockets. I understand it's exciting for sure. It definitely is. There's no arguing with that. But we're 6-3, right? We currently, if the playoffs started today, would be the 4 seed. I have a hard time imagining that's how it's going to be when all the cards are shown. But great progress from the Rockets. If they did become a playoff team this season, it wouldn't blow my fucking mind based on what I've seen through, what are we, 10 games in? 9 games in? But I'm a little more conservative on my expectations for the Rockets because I'm watching their style of ball, and like, you really have to have everybody on the same page every game. And I'm not saying Ime Udoka can't accomplish that. He's done a great job through the first 9 games of the season. It just feels like this team is still a few steps away from being a real problem for the rest of the league. But we did just beat the best team in the league. So it's getting harder and harder for me to stay tempering my expectations as far as the Rockets go. Great stuff from the Texans. Great stuff from the Rockets. And then big news from the Houston Astros. As of today, this morning at 11 a.m., they held a press conference to announce and make the Joe Espada hire official. He's our new manager, Joe Espada. First-time manager, Joe Espada. He was our bench coach starting in, 2018? So 5-6 seasons and somewhere in that range that he's been an assistant for the Astros. He was a major league player himself for 10 seasons, starting in 1996. He was an infielder drafted in the second round by the Athletics. He played for them until 2000. He played with Florida, which is now Miami, Colorado, Kansas City, St. Louis, Texas, Tampa Bay. Longtime player is the point. Knows the game. Been an assistant for quite a while. He put the hours in. He's put the work in. And this is the guy that we wanted, right? I never saw anybody else bubble up that was a more exciting potential hire than Joe Espada. And if you're like me, where you were kind of wondering, like, will Jim Crane do this? He's never promoted a guy internally like that before. I think that's what should get you excited. Then maybe Joe Espada is the next great manager in Major League Baseball. We don't know. He's certainly got a good team to start with. And what we saw in that Game 5, where he made those late game substitutions, putting in Diaz and John Singleton, both of them getting on base, Altuve coming in as a result, taking the lead in that huge Game 5 win that frankly should have powered us on to win that series and potentially another World Series, but that's for another day. That was really impressive. The way he took over after Dusty Baker got ejected and the way he made sure that we were able to keep our shit together. Not only that, but get the win. That was really, really impressive. There's not a lot else for me to judge him on outside of his track record here. He's got a lot of experience at this point. A lot of experience in the postseason in particular, which is very, very important for a manager that is going to be managing a team that it is expected they make the postseason. Here's Dana Brown on the hire. He said, quote, "We feel that Joe is a great fit to run our ball club. He has a great relationship with our players and staff and has been an integral part of the Astros' success for several seasons. He knows the organization from top to bottom. Joe has a great baseball mind and has great passion and enthusiasm. He's been in the game for a long time, knows what it takes to win, and has certainly earned this opportunity." And look, I think Joe Espada is the right choice for all the reasons Dana Brown just outlined. But I'm not sure the Astros had much of a choice once Dana Brown publicly declared the Astros held the keys to Joe Espada when he was, in fact, no longer under contract, could have gone and interviewed and signed with any team he chose. So I'm a little hesitant to get too fired up about this because with the Astros, we know the deal. We expect, at the very least, an American League Championship Series berth. But I think after this past season and the disappointment, we expect to be in the World Series next year. I think that's how we feel. I think that's how we should feel. I think that's how Jim Crane should feel. I think that's how Joe Espada should feel. I think that's how the players feel. So it's kind of a like, well, all right, go and show us then, Joe. And if for everybody in the Dusty Baker camp, rather, everybody who wasn't in the Dusty Baker camp and was constantly complaining about his personnel decisions, this is going to be a big shift in your direction. I think Joe is going to put together more consistent lineups. And I think that'll make some of you really happy. And we'll see what the results are. But baseball is a little different than football and basketball, where you have a guy like DeMeco Ryans come in and suddenly shift the culture of the entire organization, and everything is suddenly looking like we're firing on all cylinders. The future is bright, and it's also now. You bring in Ime Udoka to the Rockets, same kind of thing. You could immediately change the entire vibe of a franchise. But in baseball, like, the team is the team. The bulk majority of our guys are coming back next season. So we're going to have a different face as the manager, yes, but Joe Espada was already there. He was already the bench coach. He's been there since 2018. It's not a lot of new. So it really just becomes a situation like, great, I'm glad we got that done. Good signing. I don't see anybody in the baseball world being like, oh, they fucked up here, so, like, we're good. But also it's like, now go and win the fucking World Series. Because we're all still disappointed about the way 2023 ended. And I think rightfully so. But we're also apparently losing third base coach Gary Pettis. I don't know what that's about. I'm not sure if that's confirmed. I saw basically rumors saying Gary Pettis was going to be out as third base coach. So we'll need a new bench coach because we just hired our former bench coach to be our manager. And we'll also need a new third base coach if Pettis is indeed out, which would be a bummer. I really like Gary. I feel like I've grown accustomed to seeing him on the third base line. And so there will be some changes, some new energy, some fresh blood coming into the Astros organization that'll give us some different looks in 2024. And I think that's exciting for sure. I do think that's exciting. But now all eyes shift back to Dana Brown. And after the flub or slip up with what happened, talking about Espada, he still got the hire done. But there are some things with this team, as I've said over the past several weeks, that he's got to fix or he's got to improve. And I am looking forward to seeing him do that. He needs to prove his mettle this offseason, Dana Brown. Last time I'll say this, well, probably not, but the last time today, pivotal offseason for this team. The next couple years are going to determine whether or not this dynasty ends at a good 7-8 year run or gets to 10. Can you dominate for a decade? That's something that not many people in baseball have done before. Not many teams in baseball have done before. That I think the Astros have the pieces to do. But there's going to have to be some creativity on the part of Dana Brown for sure. We don't have like a well-built-out farm system at this point. I'm not a big farm system guy. You know this about me if you've been a part of the show for a while. But there's a mountain of evidence to suggest our farm system isn't in the best place. We do have some aging guys for sure. We've got big guys like Altuve and Bregman whose contracts end after next season. There's got to be decisions made about extensions. You've got Kyle Tucker in arbitration. You've got pitchers. You've got pitchers on the way out. You've got to make a lot. There's a lot that's going to have to happen for the Astros this offseason, and now the ball is back in Dana Brown's court. We have our manager, Joe Espada. Congratulations to Joe. I think it's great. I'm not going to get excited until I see our team back out on the field winning baseball games again and some of these other holes plugged up in the offseason by Dana Brown. In other great Houston sports news, the Dynamo apparently won a playoff game or series. I'm unclear. I thought soccer was just one game, but I think they played like 3 games. I don't really know. I don't claim to be an MLS guy. I'm just trying to give the Dynamo people something to be happy about. Congratulations to the Dynamo. They're now hosting the Western Conference semifinal on Sunday, November 26th against Sporting Kansas City. I might even watch that. I'll just bandwagon the Dynamo. Happy for them, though. To cap things off, we have a lot going on right now in Houston sports, and it feels really, really nice not being completely miserable during the Astros offseason, because the Astros have held us down year after year after year after year after year after year after year. And now it looks like the Texans and C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans are going to carry some of that weight. And the Rockets, with Ime Udoka and the new look Houston Rockets. We've got a lot of good things going. We're blessed. Hashtag blessed. Recognize that. Tune in. Enjoy this. It doesn't happen often. Where your big 3, NFL, NBA, and MLB are all competitive and good and not miserably upsetting and depressing. At least one of them is usually dog shit. Some cities, all 3 of their teams suck ass. We've got 3 that are fun to watch right now. The Rockets, regardless of their ceiling this season, extremely fun to watch. Very likable team. The Texans' ceiling is going higher by the week. And they're incredibly likable. What's not to like about CJ Stroud? Honestly, what's not to like about DeMeco Ryans? We're doing it. We're doing it, and that will do it for today's show. But remember, every episode of Banging the Can is not only available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the audio podcast platforms, youtube.com/@bangingthecan. Go subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. I usually try to answer as many of the comments as I can. Go back and forth with y'all. I love talking to you. I'll also talk to the Rangers fans who are here. Shout out to the Rangers fans who are still writing and watching our show because they enjoyed my ALCS coverage so much. youtube.com/@bangingthecan. Subscribe. On that note, please share the most unapologetic Houston sports show in existence with your friends and family. Support our sponsors as well. This week's sponsor, birddogs.com/BTC. Code BTC at checkout, and they will throw in a free hat with your order. The only way this show grows, I can pump out all the social media clips and TikToks and fucking tweeters in the world. The only way it grows is if you people tell your people about the show. If you're enjoying what I'm doing here, it would mean a lot to me. Go forth, spread the word, make more can bangers. That is what I ask of you. Check out my media startup, Bolen Media, at bolenmedia.com. My comedy show, The Ross Bolen Podcast, our premier F1 programming here at Bolen Media. Formula Bone, for all the F1 fans out there, go to youtube.com/@formulabone and check that out. Follow our show on TikTok at Banging the Can, as well as Twitter or X and Instagram at Banging the Can. I am Ross Bolen. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WRBOLEN, at WRBolen. I will be back next week. Maybe later this week. Who knows? We'll see how things go. But until next time, H-Town, stay down.